Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. I have a question for you. What do you think about food? What does food mean to you? What's that relationship like? Do you like food? Do you not like food? Do you have certain preferences? And what does it mean? I know for me, in my experience, I've had quite an interesting relationship with food. So to give you a background, growing up, I was really food conscious just because my parents were. They noticed that my siblings and I would have a certain reaction if we ate certain foods like cow milk. We become very mucusy. So we weaned that off a little bit and switched to different milk alternatives, and they noticed a shift and change. So that happened. We started to integrate more wholesome foods, especially when we lived in Washington State. So at that time, when we were there, I became plant-based and vegan overnight. And it was quite the experience. I might do an entire video about that by itself, but a lot was going on at that time. And at that time, my connection with food was really sincere and deep, if that makes sense. Like I had a deep respect and honor for food. However, I did become, you know how they call some vegans militant vegans? I was that person for a long time. Yeah, and it slapped me in the face when I re-met my husband, and he was like, "You're not gonna throw this on me." It's like, I'm not doing it. That's when I was really like, oh, let me take a step back and reassess why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I did my own research, and at that time, that was 2015, I really started to dive and study alchemy in regards to food, plants, and herbs, our relationship with nature. And it all started to make sense. And food meant something different to me. It was a way to nourish my body on a deeper level. So, and scientists, they've known this for a while. Albert Einstein and Dr. Tesla, they spoke about this. Actually, Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Energy, frequency, and vibration. That is the structure that holds everything that we know, including ourselves and what we're made out of, right? And if you're to think of food, so our cells are made up of, there are many components to a cell, right? You have the globuli, if that's what it's called, right? Yeah, the globi reticula, the mitochondria, the ribosomes, you have the nucleus, you have the membrane which everything passes through. So all of these structures have their certain roles that they play, and what you consume affects the vitality and output to which they perform. So scientists have actually created certain mechanisms to where you can measure frequency, right? So actually Bruce Taino, am I saying that right? Tainio. He created the calibrated frequency monitor, and what this does, it can measure the frequency of your foods, of different substances. And so he found that plant or cancer cells, they will start to grow and proliferate when the hertz. Now there's the hertz and the microhertz. So, and he noticed that these cells will start to proliferate when the megahertz was below 42. So when you were 42 and below, he noticed it started to grow. And then he also noticed that the people who are in like a sickly state, like cold and flu, just irritated in a sense, they had a microhertz of 58. And then he found that above that, of course, people were thriving and doing well. And not only in that aspect, they also measure plants. I want you to guess. I'm going to say at the end of the video, I want you to guess which plant has the highest frequency. Think about it. And we'll come back. If you think about it, when we eat, it's a way to nourish our bodies. And I think that's where we're going once veganism started to go mainstream. However, I know me, if you know me personally, I don't like things that are mainstream. That's another conversation. So However, I think just having an awareness about what it means, essentially, it can really enlighten someone. So, eating plant-based, you're really just eating a lot of foods that are high in vibration. Quite literally. It's not a figure of speech. It might sound a little bit woo-woo, but it's not. It's a little bit of both. It's the spiritual and metaphysical aspect, that cross between quantum physics and energetics and science. It's that merge. And then speaking of hertz, there's actually an equation. So you learn about this in higher level physics classes. And this is the Planck-Einstein relation, also called the Einstein relation. And what this is, so this here is a constant variable. This here measures the frequency, and this here measures the energy of photons. So in this equation, if you were to raise this variable, consequently, just because of mathematical principles, if you raise the frequency, you're also going to raise the photons energy, the cellular, photonic energy that's going on. So this is science-based evidence in regards to hertz and frequency and how it works. High frequency and vibrational foods also merge with the fact of the pH balance of food. It's in alignment with that. So if you're eating foods that are more acidic, lower on the pH scale, 7 and below, those foods tend to be low in their hertz measurement versus foods that are high and quite lively in their on the pH scale, right, 7 and above, more alkaline. Those foods tend to be more higher vibrational. So what do those foods look like? If you think about it, let's think about how food is made up, right? So you have fresh food. So when you pick up food fresh from the garden, if you don't have a garden, I suggest you start one. Let me not start talking about gardening. But if you've experienced gardening in any way, just being out in nature, when you go and experience nature, it's live, right? It's alive. So those foods, that lively nature, you can smell the volatile oils that are present. You can hear the crispness, the water denseness within the plant that you are picking from the ground or getting from the grocery store. So this aspect of the plant is compounds. It's high in water, which water, it's a conductor for electricity, right? So it transports these electrons, which is high in energy. And then you have the nutrient aspect of foods as well. So those, of course, tend to be higher in vibration. Now, when you take those foods and you apply heat to them, right? So what does heat do? Essentially heat, so if you think of what the body does in heat or in a heated state, if that makes sense, when things are breaking down, they're kind of falling apart, right? We call it denaturalization on a chemical level. It's just the breakup of these bonds. So this is essentially what is happening when you cook food. And then when you cook it with certain things, sometimes it will make attachments that aren't necessarily the best. So for example, if you're to cook with a certain fat, certain hydrocarbons form and bond together to where the structures may not be the best for you. Hence saturated fats. However, so just by that example, applying heat, it loosens the bonds of foods and it breaks down the vitality and what makes up and what makes plants alive and certain food compounds. So personally, I really challenged this, I wouldn't say theory, I guess you can call it a theory, vibrational foods, although the evidence is there. And what I found, so with my first pregnancy, aside from the cravings, because they were a little bit ridiculous, from pizza rolls to, it was just a lot of pizza and a lot of fruits. And at that time I was still plant-based minus the pizza rolls. So during, my first pregnancy and then my second pregnancy, to where I was just more aware, some people call it intuitive eating, where your body just tells you what it needs and you listen to that and you adhere to it. So that's where I'm at in my stage in my relationship with food. It's more so intuitive. in combination with the vibrational aspect and being conscious about that. So no matter what you eat, right? I know growing up, whenever we had dairy, we made sure that it was organic and not processed. Let me tell you a story. Okay, so when we visited Kenya, when we visited home for the first time, we went to a dairy farm and they had this yogurt milk, like kefir. I have never tasted milk and yogurt that was so like, it didn't weigh you down the way it does here. It was so fresh and crisp. It felt so good. So when you're aware of what and how food is processed, how animals are taken care of before they are butchered or handled in that aspect, you have to consider those things because that affects the vibration of food as well. How they're handled, how they're transported, it all adds up together. This is why we have chickens in our backyard. So just being aware and mindful. So essentially, it doesn't matter what you eat. I say that with caution because it does. And you have to consider, of course, what the food is made out of, how it's made, and the vibrational aspect of it. Dr. Robert Morse. If you haven't found him on YouTube, he's amazing. He's a naturopathic doctor based in Florida. And he said, if you wish to experience this pure energy, you must consume pure energy. It's that simple. The energetic exchange. So that's the energetic aspect of food. I know I talk about it a lot as an herbalist to my clients and in general on social media, but this also applies to food. So being mindful of that, it will really make a difference. It'll definitely zhuzh up your mitochondria cells, and they will love you for that. So lastly, that plant, the highest in hertz. What plant is it? It's actually rose. So rose, its hertz is measured at 320 megahertz. That's a lot. That is very high in the frequency stage. So, and they actually found, so essential oils, I know Young Living, they test the frequency of essential oils, which is awesome. So that's a way, because those are rich in those compounds as well, those phytonutrients. So essential oils is a great way to just raise your vibration. All right, I hope you learned something from this video. I want you to do your research. I hope this incites your mind to really think about your food in a different way that you maybe haven't before. If you are on that kind of journey, getting into a relationship with food on an energetic and cellular level, let me know in the comments, and I'd love to hear from you. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I'll check you guys in another video. Bye for now.